old and left 15 others injured. Mike Tobin is on the ground in Ohio, where we are just learning more about what caused the gunfire and the investigation. Hi, Mike. What can you tell us?
Hi there, Elizabeth. You've got an environment here that was going to be chock full of witnesses by its very nature. So you have the 16 people who were shot. One person is dead. And you have dozens and dozens of witnesses. But the challenge for police is to try to make some order out of the chaos that ensued immediately when the gunfire erupted. The witnesses went everywhere. Presumably, they've got security video they can track down, and they can start talking to people and start identifying these gunmen if they haven't identified them already. The gunmen are still at large. The one thing the police chief and the mayor have been very public about is that they do not think this is an act of terrorism. These are a couple of people who had a dispute between themselves and an apparent indifference to life.
It's important for everyone to understand that people were just going to have a good time and ended up getting shot. That is totally unacceptable.
Now, the Cameo nightclub here is one that caters to young people. There have been shootings here in the past. New Year's Eve 2015, there was a shooting in the club. A couple months later, there was a shooting out here in the parking lot. As a result, they did employ security. They had people wanded as they went into the front door. What's unclear right now is how the gunmen, who've yet to be identified, were able to get their weapons past the security and the wands at the very front of the club. It should be noted that the one person who passed away was only 27 years old. There's one other individual who's said to be in extremely critical condition, so sadly, we could see the number of fatalities rise out here. Elizabeth?
That's right. Very sad. All right. Great reporting, Mike. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Brief the staff there, and really the consensus in the media was, well, that really compromised the investigation because he seemed more interested in playing defense for the White House that is part of the inquiry of his committee.
Yeah, and what a distraction.
Hang on a second, we'll answer it on the other end here. This is a Fox News alert. One person is dead. One person dead, 14 injured last night after a late-night shooting inside a Cincinnati nightclub. Officials about to brief the media. Let's listen in.
A lot of questions that we're still exploring. We won't be able to answer everything, but we'll give you what we know up to this point. With me this morning is the mayor, John Cranley, the acting fire chief, Roy Winston, Councilmember Yvette Simpson, my command staff, the special agent in charge of Ohio for the ATF, Trevor, and I always mess up his last name, Velinor. Also, city manager Harry Black is traveling today. He's not able to be with us, but I've been in contact with him throughout the night and the morning, and he's fully aware of what's taking place. Let me begin by saying last night at about 1:30 a.m., our emergency communications section began receiving calls that shots had been fired with injuries inside the Cameo's nightclub, which is located at 4601 Kellogg Avenue in District 2. As the night unfolded and the initial investigation began, it was determined that the bar was very crowded, approximately a couple of hundred people. And what we know at this point in the investigation, several local men got into some type of a dispute inside the bar, and it escalated into shots being fired from several individuals. As a result, there were 16 people that sustained gunshot injuries, one of which is deceased. A total of 15 others that were injured, one in extremely critical condition. In addition to that, several others, more serious injuries, and some very minor and were released. The individual that was deceased at the scene has been identified, and his family has been notified. Mr. O'Brien Spikes a male 27 years of age. Some additional information that I can tell you about the incident. This is a very large establishment. They do employ off-duty police officers.
Tragic situation in Cincinnati. The briefing there is violence has become all too common in major American cities. We're going to go to break right now. On the other side, we will continue our discussion of the coverage of President Trump's not-so-great week. We're back, and before we went to break, Aaron McPike, I was asking you about House Intel Chairman Devin Nunes, who said he had new information, documents he described.
Back here at home, there's a manhunt now ongoing in Cincinnati for the gunman who opened fire inside that crowded nightclub. One club goer was shot dead, 16 others were wounded. What police say happened just before those shots rang out early Sunday morning. And we're waiting for the White House briefing. It's scheduled to start just minutes from now. And of course, when Sean Spicer steps up to that podium, we will take you there live.
Now, in a deadly nightclub shooting this weekend in Cincinnati, police now say 17 people were shot early Sunday morning, including a 27-year-old man who died from his injuries. Police say it started with a dispute that quickly turned violent. Mike Tobin is live in Cincinnati with the latest on this. Mike?
And Jenna, the chief says the reason the number has risen to 17 is simply because one more person with a gunshot wound came forward. And I'm not using the word victim because something the chief told me just a short time ago. There is great potential that you're going to have gunmen among the ranks of those who have been shot. Also, there have been local reports about a special VIP line in which patrons could pay extra money and bypass the metal detectors at the front of the club. That would provide an explanation for how these weapons got inside of this crowded nightclub. However, the chief would not confirm those reports.
You got to understand, right now the priority is catching those that are responsible for these 17 people being shot. As far as the policies and the practice of this premises, that will take place. But right now the priority for us is to deal with this criminal investigation.
Now, the chief said there is not a particular individual they are actively pursuing at this point. However, when pressed about identities of potential suspect, the chief only said there's nothing he is prepared to release at this time. Now, the club owner said that there were security cameras inside of this, inside of the Cameo nightclub. However, the chief said today there is no footage that is helping them in the investigation. More than one shooter, possibly several, according to a number of different witness accounts. Dozens and dozens of witnesses, as there were 200 people inside of this nightclub. Terrorism is not suspected as a motivation for what happened in this nightclub in Cincinnati. The police believe it was simply a dispute among a group of young people with an apparent indifference to life, and it spilled over into the club. Jenna?
Mike, thank you.